Jeff Miller back in the CTO studio.
Thanks for bringing me back.
Yes, there was concern about whether we should bring you back, but I think it was a tiebreaker vote.
Nice. Nice to go just under the bar, just making it.
So I want to jump right in. Last time we spoke about curiosity and the curiosity mindset, and you said something that really piqued my interest, which made me petition the board to bring you back, which was, curiosity as a thing can probably drift around in space and be a thing, but really it lives at its, I think, in its fullness inside of a commitment or a relationship or a partnership or some attachment between humans, and that to me was something I really thought we should dig into.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think the first thing I got when you just said that, I was like, of course curiosity has to play an important role. Imagine if we watched every show, sporting event, or movie and knew the ending. Life would be pretty boring. So I think, yeah, having that curiosity as the linchpin to commitments, intentionality, and let's not forget results. Like, I don't know, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but let's just assume that without curiosity, we don't have technology the way we have it. We don't have electricity. We don't have electric cars. Unless someone was curious of like, I wonder if dot dot dot, then we don't have these things. So I love the topic. I love connecting it to commitment and intention, and yeah, this will be a fun little ride here.
I love it. So the sort of the split I want to make just off the bat is, yes, with curiosity we invent and we ask and we do. I get that.
Mhm.
How does it factor into relationships and health in relationships? And then maybe we can start with deconstructing what relationships in the workplace mean. So I'm CTOing, I have engineering teams, I have VPs. I might be at the very early stage of my startup or my technology company. So I feel like there's the easy stuff that's, oh, I'm curious why this happened, but then and then there's the harder stuff, which is relationships that are mutually fulfilling.
Yeah, and I love what you put in there. Like I have that as like doing curiosity versus being curiosity. You and I could do curiosity all the time, but most of it that's kind of surface and checkboxy. But if we're actually being curiosity, that's where the deep stuff comes in. That's where you've got these transcendent CTOs or VPs or managers of departments that you're like, this person's different. This person cares. This person asks real inquisitive questions that I want to actually answer, and they build relationships.
Mm,
And I think we've all experienced the doing of it, right? Like,
mm,
yeah, this person's solid or this person's nice, but I don't have that connection. I don't feel really supported and connected to. And I think that's where the difference lies.
mm.
Going past the doing and really immersing
I
yourself
like I like that.
into curiosity.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So why don't we? And I know we're not therapists or relational therapy or marriage and family therapists, but from a coaching perspective, and I know you coach C suites, you coach people in technology, out of technology. So obviously, with your experience, let's dig in a little bit into what is relationship to you. How do you see it? What comes to mind for you as important aspects to building healthy relationships?
Yeah, it's a great question, I'm going to take it holistically. So, not separating personal and professional. I hold it as one conversation. I think the first thing that I look for me when I'm looking at relationships is willingness. Like, am I actually willing to be in relationship with Etienne, right? And what does that mean, right? Does that mean We're going to hang out all the time? Probably not, based on our lives and our current situation and what we're up to. So I get really clear on like, well, how does this person receive information? Do they like voice text? Do they like email? Do they like phone calls? Do they like to meet in person? And what do I like? And where can we meet? So it's really creating a container where the relationship can live and flourish. So there's me, and then there's Etienne, but there's also the we component, like our relationship. What does that look like? What do we both want it to look like? And this idea of like, I'm going to completely own this relationship, no matter what you provide me. That I see this, I'm committed to this, and I'm going to actually create that with you. So there's clarity, there's trust, and I think there's, healthy boundaries and intentions.
Mm.
And I can't overspeak the clarity thing because we have friends where we're like a 3 minute friend or a 5 minute friend, right? That's like my neighbor. We could have a 5 minute conversation and we are great, but I'm not going to spend 5 hours with them. Then I've got my 5 hour friends, I've got my weekend friends, and I've got my long term, we can go on a long trip together friends. So
Mm.
clarity is key because I don't want someone who we're just not going to jive for a long week vacation or working together on a project if we're a 5 minute friend or sister.
I think that distinction is, I'm actually feeling some emotions coming up only because the distinction is so clear, and I've been so confused about that even in my management style. Just the willingness to clarify even for yourself, like, this is, who is this person going to be for me and what am I going to be for them? And I think I want to dig into all of these, but I think one of the things that come to mind for me immediately is friendships, fuzziness around relationships in the workplace. Like, are we friends? Are we 5 minute friends? Are we, and if I can extrapolate that, am I your boss, but are we actually friends? Are we happy houring together? Is there a default state of always the jokes and and how liberating it can be if you just say, hey, that's not my relationship with you. No, I'm not gonna. I've always felt pretty proud about the fact that I didn't go to happy hours at the workplace when I was in corporate America, because I always felt like all the gossip happens there. Not to be judgmental, but I was always worried. I didn't want to be part of those conversations. And I think the blurring of those relationships and what it becomes, like, should we all be best friends? Should we all be liked and likable? So whatever you just said, if you just pour the messiness of business and relationships and interaction onto all of that, I wonder what that looks like.
Yeah, and ideally, it looks like kind of got to be really extra clear in those scenarios, right? And you have to pair it with your commitment and who you want to be with the company and organizational culture. That's where it gets even more complicated if we let it. So I think clarity of who you want to be and then creating those healthy boundaries, right? Like for you, healthy boundary was I'm not going to go to happy hour. I don't want to open the door for extra blurriness, aiding and abetting gossip, right? And I want to keep it clean. I think that's probably one of the best things about being a coach is, as you know, like we have a clear boundary. We're not therapists, we're not consultants, we're not your best friend. Doesn't mean I don't love my clients, but I need to keep that boundary so I can stay autonomous to the relationship, just like a VP, a manager, or a CEO needs to. At the end of the day, the commitment for, let's just say, the CEO or even the CTO is to move these things forward, even if it's without someone they really like, if it is the betterment for the project or the company. And if you become a little blurred, then you actually can't, do business flat, right? You got
Mm.
you got feelings, you got emotions, and you get a little cloudy. And it actually doesn't usually serve that person, the CTO or CEO, or the company if that happens.
Yeah.
So, I'm a big fan of structures on structures. So here's the boundary, right? Hey, I don't go to happy hour, right? We'll use your example. But what do you might need something around that, right? Like what do you personally need
Mm.
to be okay with that and to constantly remind yourself of why you do that? And like how to have that conversation proactively. Hey, thanks for the invitation. I don't want to just ignore it without explaining. Here's my stance on that and here's where I'm looking. And do you need anything around that? Because I don't want us to not have a great working relationship, but this is my philosophy around that
Mm.
and being really clear and upfront about that.
Yeah, I think I've often wondered when it comes to your colleagues and your direct reports, what you said about the company's goals, the organizational goals, the departmental goals. I mean, it requires liking the people that you work with or feeling safe or I think if I hear willingness, clarity, intentionality, container, boundaries, interact, I just feel like it's a robotic thing, and then you have this sticky honey that gets poured onto this thing called feelings and hurts, and you know how does one navigate all of that?
Well, I think the first thing is to acknowledge the not so small elephant in the room that people are going to piss you off. Like, no one's going to be perfect, just like our lovely families and adorable children. Like, you're going to get triggered, you're going to get annoyed, you're going to get angry, you're going to get upset. All those things are going to happen. But again, going back to the beginning of like, hey, can we actually have a department in an organization and a company and an ecosystem that allows transparency and meeting people where they're at, even if they're not super polished? My experience of coaching companies and organizations and CEOs is the issue becomes when someone doesn't feel safe to say the thing, buries it, becomes resentful, and then shifts who they're being. And it's like a virus. Instead of just saying the thing, I was just actually talking to a client who works for a top 5 company. And I asked her, I said, well, did you actually bring both parties into a room and have a candid conversation about what are we up to and where is the breakdown? And she said, no. I'm like, okay. Well,
Why
what do
don't
you
why don't we do that?
Well, we've been conditioned that there's a right and wrong way, and everything is, I want to say, everything is HR polarized to cover everyone's butt
Mm,
instead of HR polarized to actually be a resource for humans.
mm.
We're actually being a
Yes.
resource for the entity, and we're actually collateral damaging humans.
Yes, yes. I usually, whenever a startup starts talking to me about their first HR hire, I'm always like, "Oh man, you ready for this?"
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. I love what you said about shifting being because it becomes the black hole then, right? Because something happens, you observe it, then you shift, and then it just I don't know how one recovers from that. Um, and this is probably where CTO types or manager types need to have some mechanism in place that helps people come back to clarity. I mean, does that get facilitated by CTOs and CEOs, or is that part of our responsibility when we use the word culture?
I mean, it could be, right? I mean, depends. Like, I come in and I do that work for some folks, usually when they're past the point of no return and they need to, in an emergency, call a coach. But yeah, I have it that all of us are coaches in our own right. So whether it's the CTO or the CEO, yeah, like it's on us to create and reinvent the culture when it's not going well. And the onus is on us, right? It's like we're going to take the responsibility for that person not feeling safe to say the thing. And I think the thing we haven't said yet that is a big culprit in why this continues is fear.
Mm.
If people are afraid of losing their job or having something stolen that they're working on or having the credit or the judgment of people saying it's not good, then we coil up and we harden and we don't actually like subscribe to that. We get back into that fight or flight mode, and then we don't have the relationship at all. We're actually avoiding relationship.
So did you start, if we look at this sort of this deconstruction, if we when you spoke about willingness, it almost sounded like there was a check-in both when the relationship sort of kicks off, but also is there a continued willingness to to stay engaged, like you said, to draw from it, to give to it. I wonder if relationships should be broken down into like 3-month chunks.
I mean, I think it's a daily conversation. And I don't mean you have to do a daily action, but considering if you're taking inventory of like, who am I being today? How do I support me? How do I support the family? How do I support the team, the company, and the world? If we're not doing that, one day that turns into a year really quick.
Mm.
And it doesn't have to be anything. Hey, I'm going to send a quick text, or I'm going to go by their desk and say, hey, how are you? How was your weekend? Um, that's the willingness. And you're not going to want to, and I'm not going to want to, because we all have things on our plate. But consider that the human interaction and relationship is the gas that's actually going to create the results.
Yeah, and I think again, it's interesting how even in, if you think about relationships and you're like, okay, deconstructing it to willingness, and then you think, well, willingness deconstructing to who am I being, it it creates a level of concern around just how aware can I be, how on can I be all the time, to not blurt out something that is from a place of anger or frustration, or like you said, shifting your being. Like, just how do we, are there practices where we can just, I know there's meditation and all that. I love the question, who am I being? But can you land that a little for me in terms of a daily practice, or like you said, a daily conversation that we should be having?
Sure. And I can't step over certain things. So I also hear the strategy of it. Like, I'm going to strategize being so as to not mess up the relationship. That's part of relationship. Like, if you blurt out something out of frustration, let's just say, and it gets messy, you can actually model how to clean things up, which is even more valuable
Mm,
than pretending to be pristine.
that is so. What you just helped me see was I'm in that how do I just make sure that I don't screw up? So get the practice in, get the strategy down for that's so genius. When really, how do our model recovery, safety, like we screwed up, but this is the safety that exists. So I think I can see how that means that who am I being? What is my willingness? Uh, and if I do dot dot dot, who am I being when things are uncomfortable, when something was said? Can I be with that? Like, what is my willingness to clean up? What is my willingness to be uncomfortable? Holy moly's, this is Jeff Miller gold right now.
Well, and the best place to start is with you, especially if you're in a leadership position. Because if the leader or a leader in the company is messing up and admitting to it, people are, yeah, they're going to notice that, but they're also going to notice, like, what are you making it mean?
Mhm.
How does it show up on your face and your body language? And that relaxes everybody. not giving them a license to mess up, but then they could come to you and be like, "Hey, Etienne, thank you for sharing. I didn't even know like that this was okay." And now you're actually opening the door for more transparency and trust.
Mm.
As you know me personally, I mess up all the time. I've got no problem saying that because once we beat up perfection and we toss it out the window, then and only then excellence is possible in relationship.
Mm. Yeah, and that perfection word again around, things have to be in a perfect state for us to achieve ultimate efficiency, which that's just not, maybe that's how you could build 10,000 Teslas in a day.
Maybe. Yeah. But when it comes to relationship, it's not an exact science, right? We're not building a machine, right? We're actually evolving together, ebbs and flows all day long.
Yes, and I think this is the enemy of our industry in a way, is that so much of what we do is likened to machines, states, process, like the check, the sprints, the retrospect, like everything is a machine. Like I build the machine that builds the machine, and the tests pass or they don't. Like there's just constantly barraged with things are either in a state of correctness or incorrectness, and this is how I do my relation. Don't come to me if it doesn't work, or hey, you go figure out the answer. Like I'm doing some work with a developer right now, and I'm having to check myself when she gives me a status update that I'm not too jazzed about or don't know what to do with. And I think that's where it's like, well, who am I being? And I've had these thoughts, like, am I being the dad right now to try and, am I patronizing a young developer? Am I being a fearless boss? Am I being a super experienced, intelligent software coder and I need to show them that I know what the answers are? Is it okay for me to say I don't know how to do this? The worst part, is it okay for me to show them the code that I wrote and to realize that it's shit as I'm showing it to them? Man, that was uncomfortable.
Yeah. And for you and for most people, the uncomfortable thing when it hits like that, that's probably the thing. And what's the intention? What's the intention for the project? What's the intention for the
Mm.
relationship?
So if the intention is to get work done and to get it done well and great and excellently, how do I create relationships inside of that? Or what do they look like? Because like you said, they are fuzzy. I'm just struck with what is that? Am I asking about, again, I'm going to strategy mode, but I guess I'm asking, are you checking in on how the vacation was? Are you, it's just, I can't feel it right now.
Yeah, and a place to look could be if you could have it all, if you could have the amazing results with the relationship you would want with this person, then who would you need to be? And look, September 14th could be different than September 21st, right? So I think we want to honor that A, we're not perfect, B, it's not going to be the same, we're not robots, and like vulnerability is access to more trust. So if
Mm.
you said, "Hey, I noticed in talking with you right now, this code is shit." Okay. What do we want to do about that? And you could just start laughing, and all of a sudden, like, that's a great moment.
Yeah, yeah.
No wonder we're not getting anywhere. I thought this was your problem. I think it's my problem.
And I think and that runs right up against willingness again, because if I'm too busy, if I'm overwhelmed, if I don't want to think about this stuff right now, my willingness to engage and be with the person is at an all-time low because I've actually want to do all this other stuff. I mean, all that stuff just compounds and gives us we shouldn't be surprised then at the results that we get from that.
No doubt. Yeah. And this is where we go to the higher commitment, not just in that one micro relationship, but more so.
Mm,
I have it that both of us in this conversation, one of our commitments and shared commitments is empowering others.
mm,
So let's just say and assume that that's correct. Then even if you're working with this young developer, your high level intention is to empower them. So that could look like pointing out something they did wrong and then supporting them in like how to correct it. That could be sharing vulnerably, right? That could be just partnering with them. That also could be like, hey, can I reflect something to you? Like, I actually didn't love the response on that email,
mm.
and I'm sharing that because I care about the project, about you, and about us.
That the simplicity and the beauty in that check-in, I have in my 30 years in tech, I've never seen that. I've never been able to be that, and I've never seen that. Hey, can I reflect something to you? I'm in this with you and just want to, like, this is what I'm seeing. I think there are crucial conversations and difficult conversations that show up this way, don't do that, say this, but bringing it to this core concept of vulnerability and courage. I'm feeling the word courage, to be courageous, to say I don't know where this is going. I really have no idea.
And that's scary, especially for CTOs when they made their whole life to know where this thing is going.
The whole time we're talking, I feel emotional just because it's for some reason it's really hit my heart since just the the purity of the desire to be connected with someone and having just a fraction of that in your day to day because of all these issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I think, again, for me, I've just never been personally like super technical. Even when I was a pro tennis player, my coach used to say, I've never taught anyone with as little technique work ever. I was all feel, intention, rhythm. But I work with a lot of people who are like that. And I constantly remind them, you are not the systems you create. You are all about who you're being around those systems. And people like to hide behind things. I
Hmm.
hid behind sports. People hide behind their systems and their structures, right? And it's scary when you remove those and it's just you. That can be scary. But that also creates real relationship, not conditional. If this works, we can be friends. And if, we work together, we can be friends. But like literally take a look. This is me. Can be scary.
So what would you say to the person who says, "Hey, I have a personal life, I have a business life, and I show up." You said a comment earlier about you view it as all integrated, but what do you? And then now talking about the systems we create or the personas that we create, we embody when we are in these different contexts. Is there is there le- is it reasonable to say this touchy feely authentic vulnerability shit that I don't have to be, we have work to do, got to get it done, we're all going to go and have great weekends and vacation time, but for now it's not feelings land, it is let's just work, let's just have pride of ownership, self-respect, show up and just work. What comes up for you when I say that?
Yeah, yeah. Flashback for my younger self, number one. And then that is a reasonable life. And most people are probably going to be in that realm. I don't want a reasonable life. I don't want a good life. I want an outstanding life. A lot of the people I work with want outstanding lives. They want something greater than themselves. What you just described, there is nothing wrong with that. Dot, dot, dot. It's also limiting. And one thing I know about people who excel in one area or another is they don't want limiting. If I told you, Etienne, you can only make this much amount of money for the rest of your life, or innovate or create this many things the rest of your life, you would not like that. Um, Consider that's the same thing in that statement and in what people are thinking. And that's okay if they're okay with that. So that would loop back into that person's highest commitment. Most people aren't having these conversations. Most people will literally go from work to home, home to work. And maybe they tune out and watch their show because they can't stand their life. So once people become aware, it kind of reminds me of the Matrix, right? Once people are aware that there are choices, then people can still make their choice. And I have no judgment of that choice, by the way. That's on them, and if they chose it, great. But that's what I would point to. And then if you look at organizationally, your organization will become limited. Your department will become limited. So if we're talking about opening the floodgates for innovation, impact, creativity, people got to buy in, both personally and professionally.
Yeah, especially in this innovation economy where we really need people's creative confidence. I like working with people, especially in the C level, and I see a lot of hires done this way. Executive hiring is it's oftentimes it's just do I like this person? Can they do the job, and can I see myself doing the job with them?
Yeah.
And if it's facade or system or this is what you get from me, you're right. There's a limit. I've worked with people where I'm like, are they in this? Yes, they do the work, but I mean, where are they? Who are they? What am I getting from them? But then I often think, well, that's just my own touchy feely relational issues, and I should just get over it. My lead chief architect is not going to send me flower emojis.
Maybe, maybe. Um, yeah, I think that's the thing, right? You mentioned like, hey, let's get the work done, let's own it, let's be responsible, but let's put all this touchy feely stuff to the side. Totally doable, and that's definitely one way of doing it. But what if you actually created both options? What if you were able to do the work and sprinkle in the mindset of being on vacation? You know how when we're on vacation, we're lighter, we're happier, less things irk us most of the time when we're on vacation, right?
On day 15, 16, that starts happening.
Yes, exactly. Everyone's day is different.
I find that I just point my stress from work right onto my kids. So
No, the graham cracker goes on top of the marshmallow. On
stop
top.
poking your sister with the small.
Yeah. So, and again, that's perfect too, right? Because that's actually your work mentality, the thing you just spoke to, they'll just get it done, showing up when you want to be on vacation. That proves my point that it's not a situational thing, it's a being thing.
Mm.
Because we can be work, quote unquote, work jerks on vacation. I've been guilty of that, right? Try having a conversation with your 3-year old about just get it done. Just put your clothes on, dude. Come on, we got to get to work. Right?
So what do we do when what how do we handle it when we're not getting the willingness from the other party, or there seems to be a block where it's no matter what I do, like you can get into company values, core values, like, hey, we have collaboration as a core value. You're not showing up for the collaboration sessions. You're not writing documents, or you're not hosting Zoom lunch and learn session. Like, now there's the running up against values thing where, like, okay, this might be grounds for firing or demoting or moving. But then I feel like this is something else. On the relational side, especially with my direct reports or my executive team, what do we do when it feels like the willingness is not reciprocated? Like, I'm willing to be a 5-hour friend. They clearly got me in the 5-minute zone. How does one do that?
Well, I think that's when we bring curiosity back to the table and we actually get clear on like what's going on over there. Maybe they've got something personally going on that's affecting who they're showing up as at work. Maybe they don't like my haircut. Maybe I said something 3 weeks ago that pissed them off and they actually haven't brought that to me and it's eating them up inside. So,
So I'm looking at the willingness, and then I'm seeing the clarity. Um, Also the container. So if you're saying being curious about, hey, um, you're my newly hired VP of engineering. There's a lot that our company wants us to do. We want to empower our people. We want to achieve these results.
mhm,
But I'm sensing something. I mean, that feels a little weird. But I'm curious about, we had this conversation about updates, and I still don't get them. I have to ask for them. That to me all feels like mechanical land. Like,
yeah,
hey, I want to prod you to do the thing that you said you would do. What is the deeper thing that we can do to secure that relationship?
yeah, what you just described is the checkbox doing curiosity.
The doing thing, yes.
But if you are empowering trust, you might just go over there and like, hey, how are you? And then they
Hmm.
would say, fine. And you could say, no, actually, how are you?
How are you? You.
Exactly. And like actually like connect. Um,
I feel that shift. So I feel it from, man, I asked them to do this, and it's not happening. Okay, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. Next check in, like, hey, the document's not updated. It seems like something else is going on. The hiring pipeline, that blah blah blah. So at that point, I can do curious and be like, hey, do you need more? Is there something I can do to help you with? Do you need power? Do you need communication? Like, what's up? But then I think what you're saying is there's the being curious about what's happening for them that is is limiting or blocking them to fulfill the corporate function or the agreed upon arrangement.
yep.
But does
And
that
well, and also who you're being, right? Like if you're chatting them all this, you're actually hiding behind something too.
that's also true. If you're slacking them this stuff, wow.
Yeah. So
Slack is a delicious wall, man, to hide
like,
behind.
yeah. So like are you picking up the phone? Are you getting on a video call? Are you, obviously if you're in the same space, are you actually going to their workspace? Or like meeting them for coffee, right? Like we forget all these things are available to us, but yet we basically phone in relationship. Oh, I'll just send an email or I'll just send a Slack, but that's not relationship. And then we wonder why, like we're not connecting and we don't know all the things.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the employment relationship, the onboarding experience, the corporate culture, the exit interview, the performance review. I think that there's an assumption that there is an established relationship as described in the handbook and as facilitated by HR or by your team's onboarding process. But that's not That's probably a relationship, but that's not what we're talking about at all.
No. Right. And for example, when I used to work and run private clubs, tennis activities, one of the things I would do every single day is I would go to the office, and there was probably like 8 staff in the office, from accounting to member services, and I would create conversations, connection, show appreciation, show support, bring donuts and bagels, and I'd give them a little bit. Most was from me, but I would create relationship. I didn't have to. I was on my own island in a separate building, by the way. So this was like a legit 5 minute walk, like way far away, but I created relationship with them, not as a strategy, but because I wanted that. And it was my commitment to be in a relationship and empower other people, even before I knew those words. But I always loved people and wanted to see people do well, even when I didn't want to. And then guess what? It made it to where those crucial conversations, if I messed up or that person messed up, we had that base level where we could say the thing and actually like not be scared about it and not be worried about how the other person was. And we can check in because they knew I was coming the next day.
But so I'm hearing two things. One, I'm hearing donuts builds relationship.
Always.
Uh, two, I'm just kidding. Two, I'm reflecting on the approach where you say, I don't want to go into feelings and relationship land because I don't want to get too close because I may have to fire you. Or the fear, I can feel fear coming up like, hey, I don't want to buddy with my people or with my department because, if we went on the fishing trip to Cabo together, I might, I don't want to get too close. I don't want to, you know, I mean, as I'm saying this, I get a feeling of what's going on, but I'd love to hear when the CTO says I need to keep that professional distance because we're going to have crucial conversations, or you know, um, as a fellow, as a dad, I might be empathic to another dad because of soccer tournaments for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
As a CTO or as a VP of engineering who needs something released by Monday and is that has to be done. Like there's all kinds of delays and issues. Like I might not, the CTO might say, dude, you need to get work done. You need to make it happen this week, and I don't care how you do it. The fellow dad might say, oh man, your girls' soccer tournament. How do those worlds integrate?
Well, I think it integrates based on build the foundation of the relationship.
Well, and let me just make sure I'm saying this properly. What do you say to the professionals who say, I need to keep a professional distance because we may be in awkward professional situations where I have to fire you, and so I want to protect any potential friendship boundaries? I mean, it sounds so dumb as I'm saying it, but I just
Well, look, we all have boundaries, right? Like at a certain point, we won't do X, right? For you, going to the actual happy hour was one of your boundaries, but it didn't mean you didn't talk to them about the latest sporting event or current events that were applicable to what y'all did, or asked how their weekend was. You still did those things probably. So, yes, honor your personal boundaries as you see fit, but you can hear the scarcity and fear in the space with that paradigm. So, one of the things that I always love to do, and I don't get to do as much as being a coach and having my clients remote, is I would remember everybody's coffee order, and I'd have notes. I mean, I wouldn't remember, right? That's not in the wheelhouse, but I'd have like a note, like, all right, Etienne likes milk and 3 sugars. He likes an espresso at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I would periodically get people their drink, their order, and it has their name on it, and people feel important and appreciated. I think that's the thing. If people feel validated and appreciated, they will work weekends for you. They will go to the soccer game as a dad, you would want them to, and then they would probably get a little less sleep that night.
Mm.
Um, you're trying to support them in creating both ands everywhere.
So
Can
you're
you be a parent and get your job done?
yeah, yeah. So you're moving. So that could so the whole donuts and coffee order thing sounds like relationship management at at a surface level. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna send the birthday message, But then you you talked about the true intention, which is to make someone feel important, seen, acknowledged, and that in and of itself, I'm looking at the list. I'm assuming that part builds trust.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's also a willingness. Like I can sometimes feel in my heart, like I know it's this person's birthday. I'm not gonna congratulate them.
nice. I don't know if I'd call them and start with that, but
Yeah, my mom's super angry with me about it. She feels like I should congratulate her, but but I think I think that's the willingness. It's the so I can see now how if we move into the world of meditation and being grounded and pursuing your own wellness, how that is now in service to the ability to assess your willingness and lean in, the courage to be clear, the extra work to build trust, the discomfort with drawing your boundaries and observing those boundaries to protect yourself versus to keep pleasing people or to compromise your own being for other people, to say I have boundaries and I love and respect you and I love working with you, but this isn't going to happen. And then all of that building then into what is the intention that I have for this relationship? Like, what are we doing? What's the purpose?
yeah.
I
And
haven't I haven't thought even on my best friend level, which I still struggle with the term best friend. I struggle with friendships in general, but I haven't even thought of expressing to a friend what I need from them, what I need from the friendship. I will mope and I will be sad when I don't get any check-ins,
yeah,
but God knows I'm not going to text you or call you and say, "Hey man, for our friendship, it would really mean a lot to me if you checked in with me," or "Hey, this is what I get from you and from us and I miss it when we don't have it." This is really such a strange thing, Jeff.
well, and the biggest thing that we haven't actually directly spoken to is you don't actually have access to do it for others if you don't do it for yourself.
Yeah. Huh. Yes. I will not be able to have that conversation about what I need from the friendship with Jared Ferguson. If you're listening, I'm talking about you. If I'm not willing to sit down and say to myself, "Hey, what do I need from my friendship with Jared?" It feels to me like I'm gonna know it when I see it, or I'm gonna know it when it's happening, which is such a cop out. I want to feel a certain something from the relationship, but I'm hell not going to define it. Not going to think about it. Not going to describe it. Not going to describe what, if I had access to everything, what this actually produces. I just kind of want it to be. I just want it to be amazing.
I like that. I like that.
I'm going to write a book about that.
Is it going to be titled Magical Thinking, No Work Needed?
It's going to be called Super Fuzzy Friendships.
There we go. But I mean, to me, that's the secret sauce. And every time I see something in a relationship that's lacking with me, I always end up with, oh, that's the thing I'm not doing or being. Okay, let me start there. And let me own that with that relationship. Like, yeah, they might not be checking in, but it's the onus is on me to tell people what I need.
That's so it's so amazing, and I think where this all draws back to me is the time that I have access to taking time to just inventory and assess what is it I need from my direct reports. What do I need from me in my relationship, what do I need? And I had a fascinating conversation with my coach, Vicky. If you're listening, this is about you. Where I was upset with her because I wanted her to check in on me. And I've heard this from other friends who get coached. I think this might be a thing in ontological coaching land. Is you do the deep work, but so then you want the coach to check in on you. And she was incredible in how she handled it because she wouldn't relent. Like, what I mean is, she wouldn't give. Shouldn't say that. She was super damn curious ad nauseum about what I needed from those check-ins. And what I realized I needed was I just needed to know that everything was okay. So I was in an automatic behavior of my relationships are not okay. And so I just need that check-in to say we're okay, we're okay, we're okay, we're okay. Beyond that, I don't need to speak to you. I actually don't have time for you. I just need to know that we're okay. And that's where I had an incredible breakthrough, was that I start relationships from a place of distrust.
Yeah.
And so my check-ins ostensibly is, hey, I'm relational. I want to be with you in the moment. I want to share space with you. When it was anything but that. It was more about how can I feel better about myself or about the situation. And so if I ping you and I get the ping back, or you ping me unsolicited, holy moly's, then I'm like, great, everything's okay. But I'm not willing to go further than that. And so my transformation, uh, you know, is in this area where it's no, let's start from a place of trust. Let's assume everything is okay and wonderful and great, and there's good intention, and there's and let's from that place do relationship. So that's just an example of how I had a recent run-in with that.
Yeah. And I think sounds like Vicky did a great job coaching to the cover up of you not trusting yourself and hiding behind a text.
Oh,
And I get it all the time of a lot of clients who are like, can you reach out to me? And I'm like, no. Like, what is the thing actually about? Like, yes, but I'm curious, like,
yeah.
what for? And what's the thing you're yearning for that you're, and I don't want to say codependent, but leaning on me because I'm the safe place. What do you want out in the world that you're not getting, and you're using your lovey,
Mm.
your little blankie to give you? And yes, I'll check on you, and we'll support, we'll create some accountability. But first, let's get to the thing behind the.
Yes. Yes.
I'm the soft landing.
Yeah.
What's the thing behind me that you're
Yeah.
avoiding?
That is literally what I just went through.
And people are basically doing this in their relationship. So they're doing these like emojis, or what are the TikToks, all the crazy things the kids are doing these days. I have no idea. But it's all in good fun. But what's the thing they're yearning for? And most people are yearning for intimacy and connection. And I find that we're rubber stamping connection, and we're actually not getting connected.
Mm. That is a quotable. So let's in this sort of final section, let's think about that in terms of can I have intimacy in the workplace relationships? If I put my CTO hat on, my executive suite hat on, my direct report hat on, and I'm in a system that is performance reviewed and has its goals and milestones and OKRs and whatever, inside of a system that has to exist and has to produce sustainable growth and revenues, can I have, I'm wondering, what does intimacy look like in a work relationship? And I can hear you say, well, it's work relation, take the work part away, it's just relationship. This
Very
is a
good.
what would Jeff Miller do moment. So so then what is intimacy then?
Well, first, can we get back to the premise of can you dot dot dot, aka is it possible? So I think at the macro level, that's something you always want to check in on. Like, is this thing possible? 99.9% of the time, the answer is yes. Cool, got it. Then I would look at outside of the content because sometimes we get stuck, like you said, in the workplace. And then now we get like, I'm not sure. And you can't really penetrate. So take the workplace out. Let me ask you, is it possible for you to have an intimacy in your relationship with your wife?
Yes,
Okay. Is it possible to have intimacy in your relationship with your kids?
absolutely.
Is it possible to have intimacy in your relationship with your male friends?
Yes,
Okay, so we went to three different genres, three different buckets, and you said without much pause, yes. Now take that logic and what you tuned into to answer that, and then is it possible in this other bucket to create intimacy in the work environment?
yeah. I think it's an easy yes. And what I'm I'm what I'm accessing when I say that is just some visuals on what that feels and looks like. I have words like vulnerability, sharing, like being, relating, joy, shared success. I can see that. I think intimacy to me is showing up fully, confident and complete in yourself in a relationship.
Nice.
Huh, I
So
hope Google.
what if your job was to bring that to every relationship, whether it was
Mm,
work, friend, family?
yeah. Yeah, so this just shows me the importance of the containers that we create with each other, the intentionality of being committed to someone, and from that place things like curiosity are possible and co-creation and it
Yeah.
just
Give me
it helps me just land that you have these aspects of doing curiosity
yeah.
and just grounding it in this whole conversation is just fascinating to me.
Yeah, and I think again, like you said, confident and not confident as in like surface. Like sometimes the most confident you can say is, I don't know what the hell to say.
Yeah.
And that is extremely confident and trusting for the space. And you said really like focusing on people and your commitment to them, but starting here, right?
Mhm.
So One of the things that I always have usually like around my desk are my 5 or 6 commitments, macro commitments. And usually I can map that to any situation. When I don't want to go and meal prep or go to the grocery store, like, I don't want to. And then I look at one of the commitments and I'm like, complete work, ownership, setting the example. Okay.
Mm. Yeah.
So same thing here, right? Like really being in tune with what you want to create and how does that support others.
Mm. Wow. This is this is amazing. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Felt like I just got coached.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Okay, Jeff. Who knows? We might see you in the future. So thanks for hanging.
Thanks for inviting, and next time I'll bring the donuts.
Yes, I need relational security with you, and I'm currently not entirely sure where this is going.
I love it. I love it.